Hi, my name's Angela Casey and welcome to Edinburgh Outdoors, the podcast that explores Edinburgh's green spaces and the people in them. I've come to the Hermitage today. I'm meeting Hannah and we're going to go foraging, and it's a beautiful, frosty, ridiculously cold November day. The sun is out, there's snow on the Pentlands, and we're going to walk through the woods. We've already been spotting a few mushrooms and fungi, and we're going to talk about those, and we're going to talk about all the fascinating things that she's involved in. So welcome to Edinburgh Outdoors, Hannah.
Hello.
It's very nice to have you with us.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, it's good.
This is where the turkey tails are, actually. This particular log, you can see them from here.
And what are they called?
Turkey tail?
Can you eat those?
You wouldn't eat them like you would eat a mushroom from the shop, but I've brought one on a string to show people on walks.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're quite tough, aren't they?
Yeah, and they also have quite a lot of variation in how they grow. Here, you can smell it quite loud.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost like a hospitally medicinal
smell, isn't it? A bit like TCP or something.
Yeah. They're a medicinal one. You would actually really only use it for like teas or soups, that kind of thing. So it like helps your immune system. It's really good in supporting your immune system fight off infection and such. And they're actually used alongside chemotherapy in some places. Oh, yeah. So we're looking at a log that is overgrown with moss. And there's some plants even growing on it because it's quite decayed. And there are these strange little horns. They look a bit like a staghorn in a way.
They do, don't they?
When I touch them, this white powder comes off them. You see that? Spores. So these are spores. There's like visibly some white dust on my finger now. And these are called candle snuff. And I think when you're kind of touching them and the white spores come off, it's a bit as if you're blowing out a candle. So that's how I like to remember the name.
They're quite hard, aren't they?
Yeah. They're very visible around this time of year. Like they start to really come up and then stick around for a long time. But one of these typical kind of winter fungi that you see, it's just a little decomposer. You wouldn't really use it for anything, but
no.
Yeah, it's very beautiful.
They are very
and a
beautiful.
Bit like a bit spooky, a bit haunting.
They are a bit creepy.
So this one's a wood blue. It's really purple.
It's lovely, isn't it?
Isn't it stunning? And this is a mushroom that you'll find even when it's been frosty.
How did you get into doing this?
I think I really started foraging lots around the lockdown, like so many people.
Oh, yes.
And I was already studying plants. So I studied horticulture at the Botanic Gardens.
Yeah.
And lockdown kind of happened in my last year, so I was finishing up dissertation. And I happened to live next to Holyrood Park, off the sea area. I think it was mainly during the lockdown that I really started foraging and keeping nature journals on what I would pick and reading up a lot on what things I could make.
So were you a bit self-taught?
I have done courses, but not specifically on foraging. So my background educationally, I guess, is like botany, mycology, cultivation of plants. So I had a lot of that knowledge already.
Yeah.
And for foraging, you need quite good identification skills. And I think my studies already helped me with that. There are a lot of resources out there as well, and if you're quite a detailed-oriented person, then it will come quite naturally to you.
I mean, I'm very glad you're a detailed person, because, I mean, one of the things I think many people are nervous about, quite rightly, is picking something up and thinking it's one mushroom and it's not that mushroom and it's something else.
Yeah.
Because and that's the big worry with it, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess in some ways, definitely. I always tend to say that mushrooms have like a worse rep than plants in some way. Actually, there's a lot of toxic plants as well.
Yeah,
that are very easily misidentified because they, I would argue, sometimes look even more similar than some mushrooms look to one another, and they're poisonous lookalikes. And, you know, of course, you have to be really, really sure and not just jump into it and go, it's probably this, it's pinkish. I'll eat it now. I run foraging walks and I try to teach people about how to identify things and how to forage sustainably. And sometimes they'll get overly excited and be like, can I eat this? And then theoretically, you could maybe eat it, but it doesn't mean that it agrees with everyone, as with any other foods, you know?
Yeah.
And also, it doesn't really mean you need to eat it. Like, I think even though I am a forager, I don't only go out to pick things to eat, you know, actually just go out to appreciate, oh, wow, that mushroom looks really beautiful, and like, that plant looks really beautiful. And
yes.
I like that aspect of it.
I guess you don't have to pick everything, do you? You've already encountered some problems with dogs this morning.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, I think, is somewhere like this, because Hermitage of Braid is beautiful, but it's full of dogs.
Yeah.
We're seeing them all the time. There's always that worry they might have peed on the mushroom. I guess you wouldn't just pick it up from the ground ground and eat it, would you?
No, you always cook things. But generally, you also tend to not, I tend to not forage from places where I think, okay, that's very likely to have dog pee on it.
Oh, I think there is an outdoor classroom on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think they're great to be out here, given it's 0 degrees. Oh, there's a bench up here. I don't think I'd ever noticed that.
Yeah. Oh, shall I drink some tea?
What tea have you got?
I've got peppermint and ginger. Yeah, just add as a ginger for warming up, The ginger really helps with circulation and it helps you warm up, so I tend to have it on cold days.
That's lovely. Thank you. So you run courses and people come on them. You have a really busy life, actually, because you do so many things.
I tend to describe myself as a community gardener and forager and wildcrafter. And that's like the easy way of summarising it, because often people will ask me, what do you actually do? I'm like, well, a little bit of everything. But it's all within plant work, right? It's all got to do with plants some way or another.
Yeah.
And gardening, obviously, it's like community gardening, growing plants with people, growing vegetables, looking after gardens. Then the foraging side of it it's foraging walks, but sometimes it's also more just nature connection things. So I run lots of workshops, and they can be nature journaling or herbal remedy making, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's always got something to do with nature and plants. And then wildcrafting encompasses all of that, really, because wildcrafting is really just making things with plants or fungi that you pick. And it could be like basketry, which I do a bit of because I make my own foraging baskets. And then it could also mean collecting peppermint from a community garden for tea.
Where do you garden? You're involved in some gardens, is that right?
Yeah, so I work a little bit for the Botanic Gardens, and I work in their community engagement team, so I do workshops for groups that visit. Then I also work at Gracemount Community Gardens. I run a queer gardening group there with some other people. Mostly I can be found at Gorgie City Farm, now it's Gorgie Community Farm.
It's changed its name.
It's changed its name a lot. It's got quite the history.
Yeah, and we're going to meet there, aren't we? And we're going to do an episode which will come out in the spring.
And we'll talk a bit more about the farm then, because I think it's quite an interesting place with a lot to say about. But that's where I find myself most at the moment. I also have a little allotment that I share with some friends.
Where's that?
It's Stockton Mains.
Oh yeah,
near the Waterfleet Visitor Centre. There's so much to learn, and gardening is like a very slow learning process. And that's why I like doing it with other people.
And you've got a great Instagram, I noticed, the way
you
and I'll put a link to it at the end of the podcast, because you've got lovely videos on there and very much about the seasons and nice photography that you're doing.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I hope it inspires people to get outside.
Yeah. I hope it does. I think it does, and I think it was interesting what you said, going back to something you said early on about how you think it was lockdown that got you into foraging and looking around things, and that's been a real. I find so many people on this podcast, when I talk to them, there's either been a moment at lockdown that's made them want to be outside more, or they've changed the way they engage with the outdoors, or they've gone through a career change.
Some sort of pivotal moment of like the crisis.
Yeah. And it's introduced people to the outdoors who maybe didn't have an appreciation of it or didn't use it as much, and they've realised how comforting it can be.
Yeah, it was really nice how many people were coming to the community garden that I was involved with at the time. Yeah, gardening really helps a lot.
Yeah. We're in the Hermitage. We're sitting on some benches up here above the water, above the outdoor classroom, which we're quite enjoying
in the sun.
Background. We're in the sun.
Quite nice.
Which is quite nice today because, as we keep saying, it's very cold. So is the Hermitage one of the places that you come foraging a lot?
Yes, mainly because currently I'm living relatively close to the Hermitage in terms of the sort of bigger green spaces that I can access. I used to go a lot to Meadowbank Park and Arthur Seat, that kind of area.
Yeah.
But I've grown closer to the Hermitage as well.
So if somebody wants to go foraging, how do they start?
It really depends what sort of background you're coming from in terms of your plant knowledge or previous experiences of foraging things. Because you can just start really simple, right? You can just start by picking elderflowers or picking berries from the hedgerow or nettles. It doesn't have to be complicated. And I personally think there's just something very peaceful about going for a walk, with a little basket and just picking a few greens, especially in spring. Say there's nettles everywhere.
Yeah.
They're very nutrient rich and have so much iron in them, and they're quite easy to make into things like nettle cake and nettle soup and nettle bread. And you can do so much with just one thing, right?
Yeah.
You don't need to know many plants to be a forager. And I think that's what I usually tell people. So just get started, get stuck in with something that you definitely know for sure, that's easy to identify, that doesn't have a dangerous lookalike. It's easy to get overwhelmed and feel a bit intimidated by it all, but it's actually quite simple. It's just a matter of tuning into the landscape a little bit, and you have to slow down enough to see things clearly.
So just go out there and start looking at things. I think mushrooms seem like another level up to me.
You know, there are deadly mushrooms out there.
Yeah.
A lot of them are quite rare, though, the really deadly ones. There are some, like the funeral bell, though, that, you know, as the name suggests, quite horrible, and they grow here.
That's a great name for a mushroom. I love it.
Yeah, and then there's the death cap again.
Yeah.
It's quite self-explanatory what that does. They have quite good names, some of them, but I think it's also like because of the bad rep they get. So there's quite a lot of mycophobia in the UK. They're associated with like death, decay, and gross things. I find them so fascinating. And then there's all these other funny names like the witch's butter, and then you also have the Satan's bolete. The stinkhorn is pretty good. It really does stink.
The stinkhorn is disgusting.
Yeah. You can smell it. Sometimes I'm like, ooh, there's either a stinkhorn or a dead animal here.
Yeah, it's really bad.
But often they get quickly devoured by flies and such because they are quite popular amongst certain critters in the woods.
Okay, so Pia, the best thing for people to do is just start having a go, isn't it?
Yeah, in some ways. And I mean, if you're completely starting from scratch, obviously do some sort of walk, right? And do go on a foray, like a guided foray. Best to go somewhere locally where you actually maybe walk regularly. So say there is a hawthorn tree and you maybe weren't sure about your identification, but then on a foraging walk you talk about it with whoever is leading the walk, and then you know from that moment on that is definitely a hawthorn tree.
You mentioned earlier about teaching people to forage sustainably. And if we're thinking about mushrooms, because it is November now, and we spotted some further back, what is it you say to people about that? Because it's had some bad press, hasn't it? That people find chanterelles and off they go into the woods.
Everyone's clearing out the woods and blah, blah, blah.
Is it just common sense?
In some ways, yes. So what we point at and say, oh, look at that mushroom, that is actually just a fruiting body of the fungus, which is a mycelium, and it's made up of hyphae, and it basically looks like a white mass, fluffy stuff, and that's the mycelium. And when you're picking a mushroom, you are picking a fruit, right? And the fruit is there to reproduce, to spread spores in the case of a mushroom. And with an apple, it's to spread the seeds that are in the fruit, and something will eat it and hopefully spread the seeds, etc. So actually, I tend to see foraging, or being a forager, you're kind of becoming a seed dispersal medium, right? And you're also helping disperse spores if you have a basket with little holes in them. So that's why naturally woven baskets are really good.
I don't think I'd realised that. Well, I thought people put them in the baskets to hold them flat, but it's actually...
They also are held really well in general, all right? But because like plastic will get kind of sweaty, and they can, or any sort of tote bag, they can easily get squished, and a basket will keep them in their shape. But also a basket can help them disperse the spores. And I tend to also say, just give them a good pat and don't take the really young ones. And it's all, in some ways, common sense. And I think the foragers that I know do that. But obviously, there's talk of probably commercial foraging rather than individuals who forage. And if we're looking at the reality of it, individual foragers often have quite intimate relationships with the land, and they tend to forage from a place of relation in a way, and like wanting to connect with the land and wanting to get to know it better. Because if you're a forager and you live somewhere, you probably want to pick the same things most year around the same places, and you don't want to rinse the area because it's going to be not in benefit of your own harvest either, right? And that is a good thing to distinguish from just foraging in general.
Yeah, kind of foraging that you're doing, which is about slow walking and mindfulness. And we've been out for a while already, and you've got a little basket there, and you've only got a couple of mushrooms in it, so you're not scooping up hundreds of them.
Yeah.
I saw you one you picked on Instagram, which I thought looked really interesting. There was one you had quite a big one, was it yesterday?
The birch polypore.
And it had some properties.
Oh, it's amazing. I actually have a dried one with me because I thought maybe I could tell you about it. So this is what it looks like.
Oh, wow.
A birch polypore grows only on birch trees, and it looks a bit like a shelf. So this one's actually quite easy to identify. It's a medicinal fungus, and it has a lot of different properties. It's quite antifungal, which sounds kind of strange, but actually, fungi don't want other fungi colonizing them. So actually, a lot of them have antifungal properties, and this one has antifungal properties in our benefit. Oh. So it also stops bleeding, so it's a styptic.
Right.
And if you found this in the wild, fresh, the underside is very porous and white. And you can cut out a little slice and you can wrap that around, say if you've got a little cut, and it'll stop the bleeding. And it also is antimicrobial, so it will kind of clean the wound. It'll help the healing.
Yeah.
So even just topically, it does quite a lot. And this one has quite a lot of research done on it now. The use of it probably dates back to Neolithic times. And I made this strange thing. Well, actually, my friend made this one, but I've got a few of these as well. What we're looking at is a piece of birch polypore with a hole in it. So what I tried to do here is recreate something that was found on Ötzi the Iceman, that some people may have heard about. He was found in the Alps, fully preserved because it was frozen, right? So he was found with different mushrooms, one of them being the Tinderhoof mushroom and one of them the birch polypore. And, can't say exactly why he had it, but he was carrying it on a piece of string around his neck, which is interesting. And he also had some in like a little pouch. And research now has shown that it also helps with internal parasites, and it has anti-inflammatory and immune supporting properties. But it tastes really bitter, so it's really good for your digestion, but the flavour of it, a lot of people don't like it, and you have to kind of work it into something else. So for walks, I sometimes bring birch polypore tea, but it will have something else like elderberries in it.
Yeah. So you're obviously someone that enjoys nature. You found that being outdoors has helped you quite a lot. You're autistic, is that right?
Yes, yeah. And I was only diagnosed a few years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I don't even remember, but it did change a lot of things for me.
Yeah.
I thought that I would be quite relieved or something, but actually I felt quite sad about it for a long time.
Yeah.
And now I just see it as it's just who I am, I guess. It's just sometimes a bit hard because I suppose day-to-day life and work and everything, it can be very, very overwhelming. Because they tend to be quite high functioning, right?
Is it helpful because it enables you to tell people that it's a certain way that you're going to communicate with them?
Yeah, sometimes I don't tend to say it, actually. I write about it online. I don't often talk about it, or I don't know, people just have certain opinions about it or think they know what it means for someone.
Yeah.
But they actually don't. And I think it's becoming a lot more common for people to be better educated on it and workplaces to be better educated on it.
Yeah.
But in general, there's still quite a lot of preconceived notions of what autism is.
I think there are.
Yeah.
And I think it's different in different people.
It is, it's very different because there's a spectrum, right?
Yeah.
It's different in lots of people, but overall, just bringing it back to nature, I suppose, the plant work, it's always been a very, very helpful thing in that regard. But there's also something about the sort of sensory experience of nature that I personally find really soothing. And I find even with ADHD, foraging and ADHD, they kind of go hand in hand. A lot of people with ADHD are incredible foragers because they have this way of looking for things, seeing things that's quite incredible. Because sometimes people are on my walks and they'll talk about ADHD or neurodiversity and stuff, and I'm like, wow, you guys are always finding all this stuff.
Wow, that's interesting.
It's really, really good, yeah.
And does the frost kill the mushrooms off?
So sometimes mushrooms get killed off by frost, but actually a lot of them, a few really good edibles, are quite hardy. And they can just freeze and then be edible still. They don't decompose. And some of those, one of them I actually picked earlier, which is the wood bluet. It's a purpley mushroom. It has this beautiful bluish purpley hue to it. Because it's just one, I probably will not eat it. I'll probably just put it in another pile of leaves. And this is something quite nice about wood bluets. They are leaf decomposers, so they're really easy. It smells quite floral for a mushroom.
Oh, let me smell.
It's quite good to use your sense of smell, not just with mushrooms, but also plants. Sometimes the smell can be an identification sort of feature.
Right.
And with the wood blues, they are very hardy, so they can freeze and then they can just still keep growing and they don't rot away from the frost.
Right.
Which makes them a really good mushroom to forage in winter. But yeah, so this one decomposes leaves. And because I just found one, I'll probably put it somewhere else where I hopefully will find it again. Because it will just decompose. It has a lot of the white fluffy mycelium still. And then it'll start to decompose the leaves around there. Oh look, there is a mushroom here. This one is the jelly ear.
A jelly ear.
Yeah, these grow on elder trees. Again, it is a mushroom that will freeze and keep growing. Oh, there's a really good example here.
Oh,
There's
yes.
so many. I can pick this one. And then you can take the frozen bit off and I could just take this home and eat this.
And what would you do with it?
So I actually tend to dry them and then just use them in cooking, like stir fries and such.
Yeah.
It's such an easy one to identify. It does have some lookalikes. They love elder trees, and there are so many elders and a lot of dead wood, elder wood in the area here, so you'll find them quite abundantly. In the 16th century, it was used to help with a sore throat. You would kind of gargle it if you boiled it in milk or something.
Wow.
Or you can use it to cool down your eyes because it feels quite cooling. Even now that I've taken the ice off, obviously it's cold because it's been frozen. There's this beautiful stump with a little bit of moss, has all these turkey tails growing up one side of it, and lots of little candle snuff, and then a huge amount of inky caps. And it's cool because the inky caps you can literally use to make ink. When you touch the underside, you see that the spores are going really black, but I have painted with it. Look at that, how much ink it already has.
So you do your courses, and do you do those with someone, or do you just organise them yourself and put them on?
So I tend to also get requests from organisations, charities, people that want a foray or a workshop. And so I'm part of this little collective that I set up called Mycology Art Collective, and it's inspired by mushrooms, so we do creative mushroom things. So sometimes we do forays with that. I like to run things with someone else.
So we walked along the top, and then we walked down to what's called the Scout Bridge. We're now walking along the Hermitage westwards. So I can't remember where I read about it, and it might be that you've talked about it, but I'm really interested in the queer mycology connection. And I'd be really interested if you could explain the concept to me, because I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, so a few years ago I made like a little zine about queer mycology, and it's really just... Mycology describes the study of fungi, and queer, I guess it's similar with like queer ecology. It looks at queer theory and then applies that to plants and fungi in a way. There is a really good paper by Patricia Kaishan who wrote about how fungi as organisms are inherently really queer. And what does queer mean in this sense, right? I guess they defy standardization, they are really fluid in the way that they appear or reproduce, and the study of fungi in general also, which is really interesting.
Yeah, I suppose they reproduce differently, don't they?
Yeah, there's something about mushrooms that I think is just really... It's almost like a little kinship, I suppose, that a lot of queer people seem to feel with mushrooms. And their weirdness, and sometimes also the way they're seen as like... Or othered, that they're just seen as weird or strange.
They are, yeah.
There is a lot of that, the mycophobia, and then you can kind of apply it to queerphobia as well. There's a lot of parallels.
I suppose there are, because people, you were saying earlier about how people look at mushrooms and think, oh, you've got to be careful and that kind of thing, and then you get phobias.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
Same.
Yeah.
It is really interesting. And has it helped develop any strategies or ways of thinking about anything differently?
Well, I guess all of nature is really queer, really. And it's like my mother, she's a biologist, and I made a big poster once and it says something like nature is queer, and is probably the most sold thing that I've ever made. But she was like, well, of course it is. If you look at it logically as a biologist, that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
But even in biology, we try to put a framework around things to understand it, and the way that things are framed are often within a specific way that we understand society and we understand the relationships and such. So sometimes it's almost as if you're projecting something onto a plant. And of course you can do similarly with queer theory, but overall I think for me the way I use it and apply it is I just try to break down the binaries of things and try and think of things in a more open and fluid way and see them maybe for what they are without trying to give it names or put it into a framework or something like that, which a lot of biology is, but it's a huge subject and you can talk about it a lot.
It's a really interesting theory. Well, you've explained it really well. And I think you're right that we look at everything because it's like going back to the old thing of history and science has all been written by white upper class men, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So we've tried to squeeze everything into the boxes of how it fits.
Yeah, exactly. And I did this project on looking at a little bit of the history of mycophobia, but also looking at the history of medicine in some way or another, because I'm very interested in herbalism. And I found out that the old herbals, they're written by men mostly, pretty much, and some of them quote things like, "Oh, I got this knowledge from an old wise herbal woman," or like, "I am not ashamed, I got my knowledge from a peasant lady," or something. So there is like a tiny little snippet of who they collected the knowledge from, but they're not credited directly. There's not like a context around who that person maybe was that he may have gathered that information from. And just, looking generally at ethnobotany and collecting information about how people and cultures use plants, that is really important.
I think there was historically, we were talking earlier about medicinal properties of plants. And how largely women had developed ways of using, like you said, they've used the jelly ear to soothe the eyes or something.
Yes, yeah.
And right, that history and science led by all these white men, and they didn't trust or recognise the women who developed the...
Yeah, well, they were actually also often the knowledge sources.
We're coming across it all the time, aren't we?
Yeah.
Where history's been written in one way.
Yeah.
This is a great place to come because
very good stumps. I mean, a lot of mushrooms are decomposers, and we're actually looking at a big log now full of one of the turkey-tail lookalikes.
That tree is beautiful.
It's stunning, yeah. It's quite damp here. I think it's quite a lovely mossy environment for everything. In general, mushrooms haven't been studied as much as plants, and actually they only became their own. You know how things are classified into kingdoms, and they became their own thing in the 60s, so that's incredibly recent. Actually, in terms of academic research, there is not that much done on mushrooms and fungi other than them as pests and ways to manage them as a nuisance or something that ruins crops and that kind of thing. And there's a lot less funding towards fungi and such compared to other type of research. So that means that a lot of the things that we know, it's done through citizen science and people that just are interested, and they're not necessarily funded by academic bodies and such. Wow, this is a really old mushroom we've just found.
I just saw that and wondered what it was.
Well, it used to have caps, but it's decayed from the frost.
It's a lovely place to come. It's full of fallen logs.
Yeah, it's
and
very
trees
good. And so many mushrooms they love a log.
So you're originally from Netherlands, is that right?
Yeah, I grew up in Germany, but I am Dutch.
And your first language is Dutch?
Yeah.
Right.
And then moved to Germany at quite a young age and just went to school there and stuff.
Right. And when did you come to the UK?
I came here to study.
And you feel now this is your home, do you?
Yeah, it's fully my home. I've not felt at home anywhere like this. And I think Edinburgh's really good for that. This is full of oysterlings, this whole log.
Oysterlings, so what are these?
So that's a lookalike of the oyster mushroom. I've never eaten these, but they are eaten. People do eat them, but I've also heard that they're toxic, so I don't really know.
I think your sketchbook is really beautiful. How did you start doing that?
So I think my love for fungi actually started more so from an aesthetic point of view, in a way. Like, I just found them really fascinating, so I started drawing them rather than picking them for food or crafts or other things. I just thought they were really beautiful and weird and interesting. So when I was around 15 or so, I started doing a lot of illustrations of fungi, specifically watercolours, and it just helps me calm down. It feels like quite relaxing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can imagine. I mean, it's lovely. And it's lovely looking through that notebook, and we've seen all the things that we've been picking and looking at today.
Yeah, because a lot of these particular drawings I actually made in Blackwood, and I made them of things that I found in the area. So there's some dryad saddle, and then there's little scarlet elf cups, and got turkey tail. So actually many of them specifically gathered here and then taken home, or taken pictures of and then painted those. But
Oh, it's lovely. And so, just asking you the questions that we ask everybody at the end, I'm afraid, and I think we've sort of answered some of them already, but let's see. So what does the outdoors mean for you?
I think it's quite hard to answer because it just, it means everything in a way, It's being outdoors and getting to go out in nature and spend time with plants. It just makes me feel it helps me regulate myself. It makes me feel less overwhelmed. It makes me feel actually capable of thinking and of being a person. That's kind of how I often describe it, but it is really true because I feel so much less in my head, and even things that are in my head, I manage to process them really easily when I'm out on a walk, and everything seems so much more simple because I feel part of something much bigger, and I'm not just myself in an indoor space. Sometimes I feel quite itchy and cramped indoors. So being around plants and fungi just brings out some sort of childlike wonder and awe in me that I really appreciate.
I could see it. It was really we came through the bush, didn't we? And I didn't want to come this way because I thought it would be boring. And then it was just so exciting, and I could see it.
Yeah, so many amazing mushrooms.
And where would you say is your favourite space in or around Edinburgh?
I honestly appreciate all the green space around Edinburgh. I wouldn't say I have particularly favourite ones. There's a favourite nooks, but it's usually dependent on where I live and whatever is most accessible to me. And I think in Edinburgh we're so lucky to have so much green space, and quite good green space as well, really.
Indeed.
Thinking about the biodiversity and the quality of it, I appreciate Craig Lockhart a lot, and Blackford Hill area, the Hermitage, Arthur Seat, I feel very, very fond of because I spent a lot of time there, and I feel like I know the landscape really well. So anywhere that I walk regularly and the places that I observe throughout the season, that's where I feel a really strong connection. Yeah.
I think there is a lot of green space. I mean, this is incredible where we are now because we feel like we're in a dell in the middle of the countryside, but actually we're technically in the middle of the city.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's wonderful, isn't
it's
it?
great,
It's fantastic. Well, thank you very much. I really enjoyed that.
Me too. It's been really
loved walking around looking at the mushrooms and just doing a bit of foraging and seeing your sketches.
Thank you.
It's been great, hasn't it? It's been very nice.
Yeah.
So that was fantastic. I really enjoyed that. That was a lovely day out. And thank you, as always, for listening to Edinburgh Outdoors podcast. If you've enjoyed it, please go online and rate it and write a review. And don't forget to tell your friends about it too. And if you know of an outdoor space in or around Edinburgh that might like to be featured, please get in touch.